Tonight on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we flip our viewpoints like J.D. McKissick flips teams picking during free agency. It's time for Garbage Time. Heckling fandom, welcome into Garbage Time Fantasy Football. We are in the heat of free agency, and we are 3 days in. If you didn't know what we were alluding to, J.D. McKissick was originally going to play for the Bills, and now for some damn reason he's going back to the Washington Commanders. How are you doing tonight, Ryan?
Good. It was crazy to see that as a Antonio Gibson dynasty owner. I was kind of excited when I saw that he was leaving. And then I saw he was going back, and I was like, damn it. But
yeah, that's definitely not going to help your boy.
Yeah, and for the Bills, though, I was confused because I felt like Singletary was really coming into his own towards the end of the season there. I was like, damn, it's going to be another person that takes stuff away from him. But it looks like that they flip-flopped on that. That
makes you wonder if the Bills are potentially looking to bring someone else in there, too. There is a lot of running backs out there, maybe a Cordell Patterson. They just got Von Miller. OJ Howard, too. Do you want to discuss him, too? They really seem to just be going for it.
Yeah, so today they signed OJ Howard. Do you think that – how much do you think that limits Dawson Knox's fantasy value? He was a tight end number 6 last season. Do you think that hurts him at all? Do you think he's more of just going to be the backup guy? What do you think?
Honestly, I believe O.J. Howard is going to take a backup role similar to when he was with the Buccaneers. He tended to be more of their blocking tight end, a little bit of a red zone target. It didn't seem to affect Gronk much when he was there, and I think Dawson Knox is still going to be the red zone target for them. I think they're bringing O.J. Howard in for size and for blocking ability. So I don't see O.J. Howard having a lot of fantasy upside for the Bills next year. I believe this is all going to go to Dawson Knox, and I think he'll still be in that higher range, somewhere between 4 to 7. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I agree. I think he's basically going to be doing the same exact role he had on the Buccaneers. I think, and it was a pretty small contract they signed him to, right? What was it, like 1 year? Well, it was
1 year, $3 million, I believe, just off the top of my head.
$3 million. So that's. I mean, it is a lot of money, but not really in the grand scheme of salary caps. So,
yeah, not at all.
But speaking of money, we got to touch base on this Jaguars spending spree.
Holy shit. 2 wide receivers, over $100 million. And guys, listen, before we get into this too, if you like Garbage Time Fantasy Football and what you got to hear, typically this is a fantasy football show, but we are in the off season, so we're going to cover a little bit of everything tonight. Like and subscribe to the video here on YouTube. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple, Iheartradio, typically any web browser you're on, Tunein. Like we said, www.garbagetimeff.com. Like we say every episode, you can leave us voice or hate mails, and we'll leave them live on the episode. You can also leave comments down here below live when we are live, and we will answer your questions or address your comments on the show. And Ryan, before I answer that question, let's give the news drop.
Yeah.
News updates.
So as you alluded to, there is some bullshit going on in Jacksonville. The Jacksonville Clowns, the Jaguars, have spent over $100 million on 2 wide receivers. You would think they would be someone like a Julio Jones, who was also cut today, which we will get into, and someone else. But no. This is Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. $100 million on, let me say that again, Christian Kirk and Zay Jones. What's your thoughts? And what's the fantasy relevance? What's the depth chart going to look like? Unbelievable.
For me, so I think Christian Kirk now is like the top 5, like a top 5 paid wide receiver, something crazy like that.
I believe he's the 3rd highest paid wide receiver in the league currently.
And the only one that hasn't broken 1,000 receiving yards. And he's getting a downgrade in offense, I would think. So that really surprises me. They must have absolutely loved him for something. And then, as shocking as I thought that was, and then Zay Jones comes out of left field and snags $8 million a year.
I thought it was $10 million a year, so it is a little bit less than I thought it was, but that's still insane for Zay Jones.
I'm seeing 3 years, $24 million. Maybe there's a bonus in there or something though. And then the one signing I did like that actually made sense to me was Evan Engram, $9 million. Like that kind of made sense.
I hate that signing for them. I think Evan Engram, while athletic, is a stone-handed tight end. You know when the Giants don't want you, you're no good. I don't think it's a good fit with Jacksonville. I don't think he's going to do shit there. They still have Dan Arnold, I believe. I think he's still on the roster, if I'm not mistaken. So they're looking to do 2 tight end sets, and then they've got this plethora of 4 or 5 different wide receivers, which are no more than wide receiver 2 and 3s, and then they bring in Brandon Sheriff, who is going to also help on the line, but he's 30 years old, and they're paying him an albatross contract too. Like, does the salary cap just not exist in Jacksonville?
Not for them with the amount of money they have. I was surprised. Were you surprised that you didn't? I thought I'd see the Giants go after Conklin pretty hard, because they don't have a tight end now, basically.
Yeah, I believe that too, but I think there's still some tight ends out there, and I think they're bargain bin shopping. The biggest move they've made up at this point is signing Tyrod Taylor. So, oh boy, big free agency move there. Really sad when I could actually see him taking Daniel Jones' job. So keep it up, right. Giants. Are going to be picking first overall in 2023. Did you want to address this offense for Jacksonville, though? Like, what is this going to look like for Trevor Lawrence? Where's the fantasy relevance? Like, what avenue do we look at? This is insane.
I think it's good for Trevor Lawrence. He finally gets some weapons. He'll have some solid receivers. Mm-hmm. But for them, I almost think like Christian Kirk, I think I could almost see him taking a dip down.
$21 million a year.
Right? Like, I mean,
you better be producing like a top 5 wide receiver if I'm giving you that kind of money.
He's going from, and I mean, even on Arizona, he definitely had some down games. Had a lot of boom games that kind of boosted his stats a bit, but all season last year, he only had 1 game over 100 receiving yards.
Yeah, so Jacksonville, we see this as your kind of move. It's nice that Clown Gase is in the GM room making the moves for them. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, could Kirk potentially break 1,000 yards? I think on any given offense he could. He almost got there with a very good Cardinals team who has a lot of weapons there. He's someone that can also run the ball. He's a gadget player. I think he's going to be a good fantasy player. I just don't think he's worth this money, and I can't get out of that mindset for fantasy football. But obviously he's going to be valuable, I think, for the fact that if they're paying him that much, they're obviously showing their hand and they're going to use him a lot. So I really don't know where to assess this. So maybe as a wide receiver 2 right now, but it's just so weird. Putting the clown take on yourself, just hit the wrong drop.
No, I hit the news one.
We have a news break?
The Giants are signing tight end Ricky Seals-Jones.
Well, there you go. There's your tight end, I guess. Actually, I like that fit. That's a decent fit.
They must have been tuning in.
Yeah, they're like, oh shit, Garbage Time Fantasy Football says we need to get a tight end, so we better get on it. Yeah, so there you go, Ron Seymour. There's your move.
I don't hate it either. It didn't tell me contract or anything, but yeah, I'm not upset about it.
No, he's been great for fantasy football, and I think he's a good fit for the Giants. So nice to see they finally made a move because they had nobody there. So Ricky Seals-Jones, welcome to the starting position of the Giants.
You want to know what I am upset about?
What? Probably lots of things.
This Miami Dolphins running back room is going to be a mess. So it was messy last year. A lot of people were in on Myles Gaskin because he looked good. the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
He started splitting carries. You got Salvin Ahmed in there. And now you see them bring in Chase Edmonds. And they also just signed Raheem Mostert for a year. Do you want any part of that backfield in any way, shape, or form?
So this was strange from the fact that when I saw Chase Edmonds sign there, I'm like, that's it. Miles Gaskins is losing his fantasy value, and this is going to be Chase Edmonds' backfield. And that's the way they're going to go. But their new coach, Daniels, is showing he's going to take the 49ers mantra, which is a committee. Singletary played in a committee. Obviously, Edmonds is in this committee. And I think Gaskins is going to be the boomer in this committee. So this is going to be absolute awful value from the running back position now in Miami. Now, there's 3 teams that do this. The Jets do this. They implore this based on their head coach. I believe that's going to continue. Miami now implores this. And the 49ers were originated, also implored this with Deebo Samuel, who happens to be a wide receiver. And God knows where Cordell Patterson ends up too, which could destroy fantasy value anywhere he goes. So,
yeah.
Where do you see a player like that going?
I don't know. It's so hard because I know I kept saying, like, towards the end of the season, I think we truly saw the Cordell Patterson experiment coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
I think teams learned how to figure it out. He's also, I think he's 30, right?
Yeah. 33,
so
actually, I think. I think he might be 33.
I think the team will sign him, but it's not going to be for a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I could see, does Bill Belichick try hustling him back to come back? Who knows?
So instead of 5 running backs, you guys will have 6?
Right. So that will definitely be one to keep an eye out. Honestly, I forgot that he's out there in free agency. So I could see him being one of those later signings for the teams that sit back and wait till all the big money is spent.
I think the dark horse team for him currently is the Buffalo Bills. Listen, they just lost out on J.D. McKissick, and obviously they're in the realm of getting a passing running back. They just lost one because the man couldn't make up his mind, and he decided to pull an Anthony Barr, and go back to his old team.
You know what? That's actually I think really like that.
I think Cordell Patterson would be the fit there for the Buffalo Bills, which will absolutely destroy Singletary's fantasy value going forward too. But getting back to this Miami backfield really quick, what's your thoughts on this too? Do you see this being a committee by backfield, or is someone like Chase Edmonds going to eventually emerge?
No, I think it's going to be a committee. I think they're going to keep rotating them out. Plus, all 3 of those guys are talented, so it's going to be really hard for them just to pick one guy to pound the rock. So I absolutely see it being a committee. I don't love that move by the Dolphins, but there was a couple things they did do that I liked. Franchise tagging Gesicki, I think, was a smart move. Cedric Wilson, I did like that. 3 years, $22 million. Some are saying it's a lot for a guy that's pretty unproven, but he was really coming into his own last season. Granted, that was on a pass-heavy offense. What are your thoughts on Cedric Wilson?
See, Cedric Wilson proved himself during that Thanksgiving game, and he was really carving himself out a role during the season, even with 4 wide receivers there. You saw injuries happen early, specifically to Gallup, and he was able to take advantage of that. This all depends really on the quarterback play and whether the Miami Dolphins are going to look to establish a running game as opposed to it being a heavy passing offense. Jalen Waddle is going to take a lot of passes and a lot of volume because he's a possession receiver. They already have their weapons there too at that position, but he's an interesting side because he's young, he's talented, and they gave him a 3-year contract, so they obviously want him to be a part of the offense. Currently, I see him more in a flex role for fantasy football, but he's definitely an interesting take here.
Yeah, it's like you said, he's an interesting player because he didn't really start to get a lot of workload until the end of the season when injuries started popping up. I mean, he only went his first game where he got more than 5 targets was week 6. But then after that bye week in week 7 is really when you saw him come on. Missed 3 games, but still he was at 600 yards. You'd give him a full season with like a full snap count. I think he could end up being pretty good.
I think Gesicki's value is going to significantly go up too. So, like I said, he ran a 49ers similar offense, and we saw Kittle be a focal point of that offense too. So look for them to put him in a similar role to Kittle. Not saying he's nearly as talented as George Kittle, but Mike Gesicki is a good tight end, and I think they're going to look to use him too. Speaking of other tight end, what were you saying?
I agree.
Speaking of other tight ends too, I wanted to get your initial thoughts before I go on my 10-minute tangent with this. The Jets have signed 2 tight ends, CJ Uzomah and someone I really wanted to get on the team, Tyler Conklin. Now, Conklin had over 60 catches for Minnesota last year, and CJ Uzomah is coming from the Super Bowl challengers this year, the Cincinnati Bengals, with a lot of experience. He's 29 years old, and he was there all the way through their rebuild. What's your thoughts on the tight end position on the Jets specifically? Is there any fantasy relevance here, or are they both going to burn their value out, potentially playing in 2 tight end sets?
No, I like it because, like you alluded to, they're basically going from a position that was non-existent for you guys last year, pretty much, to now 2 tight ends who you had. Oh, where was it? You had Tyler Conklin, 60 receptions, CJ Uzomah, 49 receptions. So you're going to get 2 tight ends that are basically 50 plus receptions. Uzomah was just under 500 yards. Conklin was just under 600 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 2 big bodies, 2 big targets for Zach Wilson, which I think is a lot of what he was missing last year. Like being able to check down to your tight ends is a huge advantage, and he just did not have that last year at all.
The New England Patriots know all about this. Who were the 2 players you signed last year, and what was the role these 2 players played? Do you see this as being a similarity?
Yeah, so we took Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry definitely had a better season. Mm-hmm. Jonnu Smith, though, I mean, he had some injuries, so we didn't do a ton of 2 tight end stuff. We worked him in to the running game a lot, but I think this season we're going to see more and more of the 2 tight end sets. So there might be 2 teams in the AFC East doing that. Well, 3 now if the Bills took OJ Howard. You might have
him and Knox.
It's a very strong tight end division out there. You got
never thought I would say that with the Jets.
Yeah, all in one division now. You're gonna have Dawson Knox, OJ Howard, Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, CJ Uzomah, and Tyler Conklin.
Any of these tight ends breaking into the top 10 this year for fantasy? For the AFC East?
I think Dawson Knox will still be. I think they'll be fringe, like between, like right at that lower 10 group. Mm-hmm. Last season, Hunter Henry finished right at 10. Knox right behind him at 11. So I think between like, I don't know, I'm gonna say the 8 to a 12 range.
Yeah, I think there's a few of them in there. I don't see the Jets tight ends breaking into the top 10. Out of the 2, if one did, I think it would be CJ Uzomah, just based on the fact that he is a big red zone target. He had 5 touchdowns last year with the Bengals. I could see him being a big body target for Zach Wilson, being a 6'6". Conklin, I think, will be more of the possession tight end, also blocking too. It'll just be nice to have effective 2 tight end sets should they stay healthy, which is very hard to do on a Jets team, but I am absolutely thrilled that this is the route that we're going to get to take. So, all right, let's talk about my ultimate nightmare. Fucking Tom Brady, unretired Sunday night. I saw the report, and I wanted to throw my phone across the room. What's your thoughts on Tom Brady unretiring, and is this the reason why all these free agents are going back to the Bucs?
I'll answer the second question first. I'm going to say yes, definitely. The Tom Brady effect is real. In New England, we got to benefit from that for 20 years. To be fair, the Tom Brady effect probably didn't start until like 5 years after he was in New England, but last 15 years anyway. And as soon as he signed, you saw more and more people start coming to Tampa Bay. It sounds like Gronk is going to go back. So I love it. I think it's awesome. I'll take another year of Tom Brady for sure. Tampa Bay's very lucky because they had no quarterback situation sorted out whatsoever.
Yeah, no, they were looking down the barrel of Kyle Trask until Tom Brady decided to come back.
So I wonder now, do you see Tampa Bay draft a quarterback this year to try to have him behind Tom Brady? Somewhat have a game plan for life without Brady?
My gut is no. I think they're not going to do that because they don't want to give Brady the impression that they wouldn't want him to play as long as he wanted. And the quarterback class is better next year. So I don't see them taking anyone this year. I think they're going to look to avoid that. They're going to give Brady his weapons like they did with Russell Gage, which we'll get into in a second, and look to improve on that team and load back up and challenge the Rams for the NFC this year. So again, like I just said, Russell Gage is also signed with the Buccaneers. Is this a big hit to his fantasy value considering how many weapons are there? Or is he going to end up taking the Antonio Brown role and actually having a role on this team?
Yeah, I think it's the Antonio Brown role. I think he's the perfect substitution there. And I think you see all three of those guys having decent years. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Russell Gage. I think if it hurts anyone, it's probably what was the guy? Scotty Miller, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's going to be irrelevant. I mean, he was starting to come on as like a fringe flex, I think.
But there was also the other guy there too. There was it was Scotty Miller, and then there was someone also challenging him for reps too. Currently, the kid's name's escaping me, but regardless, I think Russell Gage is talented enough to overtake both of them for that third wide receiving role.
Yep.
And look for him to be highly fantasy relevant should Godwin's injury linger into the season, which I think is likely. I think they're going to try to ease him in. So I think you could see Russell Gage carve himself out a nice role early in the season, especially for fantasy football.
I agree.
What's your thoughts on Leonard Fournette still being on the market? Do you see him re-signing with the Bucs, or do you think he's going to go somewhere else?
I could see him re-signing. I don't know if he's going to draw a ton of interest from other teams. And with Tom Brady back, he might want to go back to them to a Super Bowl contender.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he re-signs.
Okay. Does that put him in the top 10 running backs?
Ooh, that's that's tough. I'll say yeah. Screw it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our next little bit of news here too. Let's focus on what Dallas has done this week, and specifically Sunday. I believe it was Sunday anyway. It was Saturday or Sunday. They traded Amari Cooper to the Cleveland Browns. The Browns are another story. We'll get into that shortly too. There's a lot going on in Cleveland land over there. So Amari Cooper being traded to the Browns, if their quarterback situation stays the same, is that a good move for the Browns?
I think so. It's definitely a strong weapon, but I'm really after Baker's post last night, I'm thinking
God, that was weird. Yeah.
Right?
The post alluded the post alluded to that Cleveland has been a big part of his 4 years in his professional career, and that no matter where he plays, he's going to play his heart out. It was just strange to see. It was almost like a goodbye letter, but he was also hedging his bets on a goodbye letter. Yeah. The Browns are currently flirting with another quarterback. That's flirting with a lot of players, but we'll try to stay on topic and not just get into a pish-posh of fucking everything because there's so much shit happening in the league right now. But let's get back to specifically the Amari Cooper situation and what this means for the Dallas Cowboys wide receiver position. They made some strange moves.
They re-signed Gallup, but they lost Wilson and they lost Cooper. That's a tough blow.
They also franchise tag Dalton Schultz and then cut another productive tight end.
So, so you got Gallup as your wide receiver 1 now.
Coming off an injury.
Which isn't ideal.
CeeDee Lamb is the true number 1 there. But your 1B now is Michael Gallup, who has proven to be effective. But again, coming off an injury. So this just shows you that CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz's value next year is going through the roof, at least early in the season. Doesn't mean Gallup will catch up, but Dallas front-loaded some really shitty contracts, especially with Ezekiel Elliott giving him $90 million for
terrible
a running back that was, yes, effective, but it was behind a great offensive line. As shown by another running back on that team, they can run behind that line, and now they're in cap hell and potentially looking to trade someone like Lyle Collins. So that line's going to get weaker. They're losing players on defense. What's the idea in this Dallas backfield? Are they just trying to Band-Aid stuff and keep the team together?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, given that huge contract to Zeke, kind of has pretty much tied them up because it's a contract that's impossible to get out of and that no team's going to take on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a tough year for them. And, they miss Randy Gregory on the defensive side. They whiffed on that. So
speaking of defensive contracts, go into that Randy Gregory contract story because it's a fucking hilarious story for that Cleveland fandom.
Yeah, another flip-flop. The Cowboys recruited him pretty hard, so he originally said he would go with them. And then they tried to make some changes to the contract right after. So he just said, peace out, and took the deal with the Broncos for the same exact amount.
Yeah, they tried putting in some offset language should something happen that he would be voided in the contract. And this was after he already agreed to the terms and they were changing stuff up. So he said, nope, I've had enough of this, so I'm going to take my talents to Denver and go play with Russell Wilson, which has not been mentioned on the show yet, I believe. I don't think we covered this last week. So Russell Wilson, now with the Denver Broncos. We might have actually talked about this, but I don't know. We're covering it again. What's your thoughts on this?
I love it. It immediately makes Jerry Jeudy and Portland Sutton much more fantasy relevant. Jeudy came back from his injury, started to come on a bit, but with a quarterback like Russell Wilson, that's going to completely change everything.
Yeah. And speaking of other quarterbacks too, we'll skate over that because like I said, I think we covered that a little bit on Thursday. I think that's when the trade went down. Deshaun Watson is he's been cleared. He did not get indicted on anything that is not indicative of anything in the law system because, a DA will indict a ham sandwich. So it doesn't say anything against guilt or innocence here. But he is not going to be charged criminally. So now teams are interested in him and he has gone on a few visits. And the teams currently interested with him are the Panthers, the Saints, the Falcons have come out of nowhere saying they have interest in him. And the reason why Baker Mayfield wrote that goodbye letter to the Browns, he visited with the Browns today. And apparently that meeting went very well. So what's your thoughts on Deshaun Watson? Where's his best fit? Where's his best fantasy fit? Where does he end up?
So, Falcons.
Panthers, Saints, Falcons, and Browns.
Man.
Mind you, the Saints don't have a lot of salary cap space, so
I was going to say,
I don't know how the hell they're involved in this, but it'd be a great fit, I think, if they can work it.
I was about to say, I think the Saints would be a great fit, but I don't know what kind of miracle salary cap stuff they would have to do to actually make that possible. Like, I literally don't.
Michael Thomas would love it.
And then I guess I would say the Falcons just lost Kirk and Gage. Well, not Kirk. I mean, they just lost. You know what? I would be down to see Deshaun Watson go to the Falcons and Julio Jones to come back.
Yeah, actually, that's kind of interesting that you said that too, because there's a report that Jarvis Landry is going to visit with the Falcons, and boy, is there a void at the wide receiver position now that Russell Gage is left too. They have no weapons there, so now that Julio Jones has been cut by the Titans, Jarvis Landry visiting, there's a lot of holes and a lot of fits for him. So should you see someone like Deshaun Watson go there? I think that would be an absolute great fit. He's a hometown boy too, so he grew up there. but they'd have to find somewhere to unload that Matt Ryan contract. And I think the team that you would see doing that would be the Colts. The Colts are desperately out there looking for a quarterback. And I think no matter where Deshaun Watson goes, the Colts are going to pick up the scraps of whoever's quarterback isn't on that roster. I mean, look at this. The Panthers could potentially sign him. Sam Darnold's there. That might be a fit if you got to go that reason. But the two teams they'd really be interested in picking him up in is the Falcons because they could trade for Matt Ryan. And if the Browns trade for him, that means they need to unload Baker Mayfield's rookie contract, which they also has the 5th-year option on it. So two decent options there for him. And waiting in the wings that nobody's still talking about is the domino waiting to fall, Jimmy Garoppolo, who could be traded to anyone that's left out of the musical chairs here.
Well, and it's worth noting the Colts did put in a request for Deshaun Watson.
The Texans said no.
Yeah. So I think I could see that the Colts either taking on a Matt Ryan type thing, or they might be the number one, the most likely spot for Jimmy G.
What about Baker Mayfield? Do you think they could end up with him, or they'd look to go another direction?
I don't know if they'd want him.
See, personally, I think the fit here that makes the most sense anyway would be the Texans trading him out of conference. So my gut's not telling me that he's going to end up going to the Browns. I think that's the best fantasy fit for him. Cooper's there. I think they're going to also draft another wide receiver potentially. Not with a first-round pick because I think they'll be forced to trade that should you end up going there. But the best fit, if they can work with salary cap magic, I think would be the Saints. Listen, Alvin Kamara is there, potentially facing a suspension, jail time. Who knows what happens with that? Michael Thomas is coming back from injury, and they have some other interesting deep targets there. So if the Saints can somehow pull a rabbit out of their hat with this cap situation and get him on that team, that's the best fantasy fit for him. And that offense instantly goes up leaps and bounds. And even those other wide receivers could potentially become something. They'd be something to watch on the back end of drafts too.
I did see the Saints did a ton of conversions today to sign-on bonuses to push the contracts back down the line a few years. So they're working to clear stuff up, but I know they were in a bad spot, so who knows what that looks like.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting too. Let's talk about another player too that's also been rumored to be on the market too. We already talked about the Giants a little bit earlier, signing Ricky Seals-Jones, but they're not making a lot of moves here, and this looks like a team ready to tear it down or rebuild. Do you see them potentially trading Saquon Barkley? There was talks at the rookie convention known as the rookie scouting combine. I think it's something. What am I thinking of? Is it league meetings or the scouting combine? Yeah, it was a scouting combine. Saquon Barkley's value wasn't seen as a 4th-round value. Do you think the Giants are actually going to trade him? Because a resident host and Giants fan, Ron Seymour, seems to think he's not going to be on the roster next year. Do you think he ends up somewhere else?
I think what they would want for him and what a team would be willing to give is too far apart.
So you ultimately see him staying on the Giants at least for another year?
Yeah.
So where there is smoke, there is no fire in this situation. Another running back is also re-signed, this one with the Cardinals. And I think this is a very fantasy relevant move because James Conner now is the bell cow there with the Cardinals.
Yep.
We did allude a few episodes ago. I believe there is a young running back in that backfield too, which I think is uber talented. But listen, that was based on one carry and one carry alone. But James Conner, for some reason, they are absolutely in love with him. They're willing to give him the rock. We saw that last year with the injury that ended up happening to Chase Edmonds. And he's now got a 3-year, $21 million contract, so they obviously value him. Where do you rank him among fantasy football running backs?
Yeah, so he was running back number 5 this past year. I'm going to keep him right at the same spot, right in that same ballpark.
I see him falling somewhere between that. I think 5's a little bit too high for him. I think teams are going to figure him out and load the box up a little bit more. I think they're going to try to make Kyler Murray pass the ball a little bit more. It was shown that he's a little erratic later towards the part of the season. And James Conner was pretty effective, so look for them to load the box and also remove Kyler Murray's running ability. So I see him falling somewhere between that 8 to 12 range, but I would not be opposed to taking him in the second round of fantasy drafts in this upcoming year, depending on what happens the rest of the offseason, too.
Yeah, definitely.
Minnesota gave Kirk Cousins another extension for some reason. The man's made over $200 million over his career. Is he ever leaving Minnesota?
I kept seeing him as a possible trade target, but then this came out, so I guess so. I guess he's just trying to stay there.
And that's all there is to it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now let's move on to the Detroit Lions, who made an interesting move here, signing DJ Chark to a 1-year, $10 million contract. On the other side of DJ Chark, they have Amon-Ra St. Brown. What do you see this wide receiver room working out to be? And is DJ Chark simply the wide receiver 2, or do you think he's going to overtake Amon-Ra St. Brown for targets here?
So I really like that signing. It's also worth noting that the Lions got Josh Reynolds as well. So they have some talent there. I think that Shark will do a great job of drawing attention away from our St. Brown. So I like it, and I think this is a good opportunity for DJ Shark to kind of prove his value again and go out after next year and get a big contract. I was really hoping the Patriots would be looking at him. I'm not sure if Jared Goff is the quarterback to do that for you, but I think the quarterback is going to be more of a limitation on this offense now than the wide receivers.
Now, for fantasy value, because this is a fantasy football show, Heckling Fandom, so we're going to stick to that. Is this the point of the offseason where you would trade Amon-Ra St. Brown having his highest value, or is this a player that you want to keep your hands on in specifically dynasty formats?
I think I'd still roll with him. He was coming on really hot. Looks good. The Lions at some point are going to have to upgrade their quarterback position, or Goff's going to have to figure it out. He's still young, so I would keep him.
Yeah, no, I agree with that too. I think I want to see what they do in the draft, though, too, because I don't think this precludes them from taking a wide receiver in round 1. They really could trade back into the first round and do that. I don't think they would take one at 2. I don't see a wide receiver getting taken to at least pick 7 or 8. But there's a lot of value in the back half of the first round, second round, for Detroit to take another wide receiver, which could hamper the value of these 2 wide receivers that are currently their 1 and 2. This is specifically DJ Chark and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Honestly, Josh Reynolds getting re-signed 2 years, $12 million. I don't see him being anything outside of the wide receiver 4. So I don't think he's going to have much fantasy value there. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think, is currently the alpha of this offense. DJ Chark is a nice big body. Both of these guys can have fantasy value, and Detroit's building something interesting up there. I kind of like the direction they're going with this.
Yeah.
Will Disley also re-signed with Seattle? This does nothing for me. What's this do to Noah Fant? Is he going to be the number 1 target for their new quarterback up there in Seattle? With the familiarity of Drew Lock being there?
I guess. Like I don't know what Seattle's going to look like. I don't like any of it. I don't know what's going on over there.
It seemed like a teardown that didn't need to happen, to be honest.
Right.
I don't know if Pete Carroll just didn't like Russell Wilson, if he feels like he can win without Russell Wilson, or if they're going to go a whole nother direction. He's like, listen, I can load up right now, and I'd love to pay 2 safeties over $100 million, so Jamal Adams will stop whining. I don't get the move.
I guess a report came out saying Russell Wilson wanted out, so they obliged that, allegedly.
Yeah, well, Aaron Rodgers wanted out for 3 years, and then as soon as Green Bay Packers threw the bag at him, he shut his mouth. So that's all you got to do is throw the bag at them, and they shut their mouth. Speaking of other tight end, that's all you got to do is throw the money, and then they're happy again. Zach Ertz re-signed with the Cardinals to 3 years, $17.5 million. Is he going to be prominent in that offense and fantasy relevant?
I'm going to say, yeah. I know that when he went over there, he pretty much immediately became fantasy relevant. Finished as tight end number 5 this past season. I just want to pull up the game log, see how he did once he got over on the Cardinals. Oh, it doesn't show me.
Or maybe it doesn't give you an answer.
Yeah, but I'm going to say, yeah.
Okay, and now I believe there's a new quarterback in Steeler land, isn't there? JJ's favorite boy. Ooh. Get into that for me. What's going on with the Steelers offense, and is he the starter there? Mitchell Trubisky.
I do think he starts there. I'm excited to see it, see him have a second chance. The moment JJ's been waiting for has happened. So I'm excited to see him, Najee Harris. I'm ready to watch some Steelers games this upcoming season to see what that looks like.
Yeah, this is a really interesting move, and in specifically Superflex leagues, I really see him being a quarterback too. There's so many weapons there with the Steelers too. Decent running backs, great wide receivers. There's a lot to like up there for Mitchell Trubisky, and I honestly think that he's going to play well there and potentially hang on to that job for 3 or 4 years. JJ talked him up this offseason from what we saw. He played well with the Bills when he got the sparse amount of opportunities while he was there. Ron's now crying that he's not a New York Giant. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Specifically, what does that do to Najee Harris in that backfield?
I think it keeps about the same. They signed a few a tackle and a guard, looking to beef up that line a little bit. Mm-hmm. So I could see Trubisky doing some checkdowns to Najee Harris and stuff. So I like it. I think it makes the offense better.
Okay. And as we already stated too, free agency started off with a bang, and a lot of these moves are moving forward. There's still dominoes drop here. Obviously, Deshaun Watson, I think, is the holding pattern for all of the big moves not happening right now. But there's some really good players still left out there. I mean, Odell Beckham, Melvin Ingram is a big piece of running back. We already talked about Cordell Patterson. Allen Robinson isn't signed anywhere. Valdez-Scantling, Juju, Leonard Fournette. Out of these names or anyone else in your mind, is there any highly fantasy relevant players that you think are going to sign somewhere? And what is it going to do to the fantasy universe?
I'm definitely looking at the Allen Robinson, where he goes, because he has the potential to be a very strong wide receiver in an offense if he goes someplace that he would be the wide receiver 1 or the wide receiver 2. MVS, he was on the Panthers, was very boom or bust, but that's also because you got Devontae Adams there.
I think secretly JJ wants MVS.
I think so too.
I think he's going to – I do think he ends up going there. Something in my gut's telling me that MVS is going to end up with the Chicago Bears, and I think that's a good fit.
Yeah, I would love it. So those are the two I think that – but OBJ showed that he's still got it. So I actually thought I would see him go back to the Rams, but I'm not so much sure now if that will be happening. I feel like if he was going to go back to the Rams, it would have happened already.
Or maybe nobody's negotiating with him, and they're like, listen, we'll get your contract done, but we need to make our other moves first. So just hang on.
Could be.
Relax, go on vacation for a week, and we'll get to you. Don't worry about it. Honestly, I think a sneaky fit for Allen Robinson, and I haven't heard a lot of talk about it, could potentially be the Philadelphia Eagles. Now listen, Devontae Smith is currently there. Jalen Reagor sucks. I think they could use another receiver there, and I think they'd be willing to spend on him too. So I could see Allen Robinson getting maybe a 1 or 2 year contract there with the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you like that fit, or is there somewhere else you'd like to see him?
No, I'd be with it. I would really like to see him go to the Patriots, but who knows what the Patriots are doing right now. So
you're trading away all your starters for 5th round picks, trying to clear up salary cap space or something.
Yep.
Who knows? Maybe just assign your draft, or maybe you guys will actually do something. I'm not quite sure what the logic is there.
I know that our 2023 cap space is like really good right now, so I think they're hesitant to convert stuff to signing bonuses or alter contracts because we're coming up on a huge salary cap year next year with a lot of spending money. So I think we might have an off year and then have some big money to play with next year. So we'll see what happens.
Okay. And is Melvin Ingram's fantasy value done going into the future? Is he going to sign with Denver, or is he going to find rebirth somewhere else?
Ooh. I don't know. I see wherever he goes, it'll be like a smaller contract for a very specific role. You know what I mean?
My gut's telling me he's going to go back to Denver, and I think this is going to absolutely crush the value of their starting running back, the guy they drafted last year, too. It's just...
Yep.
I think he's going to want to go play with Russell Wilson there. I think they're going to want to load up at every position they can, which is good for real-life football, but not good for fantasy football. I mean, don't get me wrong. He was fantasy relevant, as both of the guys in that backfield were, at least a little bit. So is it the best fit? No. Is there other teams that could use him more? Yes, but unfortunately, I think you're about to see another committee again, which is truly unfortunate. Juju Smith-Schuster, do you think he's going to sign somewhere? And where's the value?
I definitely think he signed somewhere. I mean, he's still talented, even though once Antonio Brown left, his production went way down. Mm-hmm. I just don't know if he's asking for like a huge contract. That's why we haven't seen much. Because when you see what some of these other guys have been getting, like Christian Kirk, for example, I'm going to assume that a Juju contract would have to be huge.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting too. I think too, where there is a void for some of these players is specifically the Bucs backfield right now. I want to see what's happening with Leonard Fournette. That could potentially be a fit for Melvin Ingram too, Cordell Patterson. There's a lot of spaces where these players can fill in holes and become fantasy impact players too, whether they were that way in the past or whether it's going to be a new outlook for them. So I don't think we're done with free agency here yet, and I think the second wave is going to be a lot of fun. Specifically, the step we need to see fall is Deshaun Watson, because that's when I think you'll see the floodgates open and teams are going to just unload the rest of their salary cap space. So the big chip that needs to fall, especially for fantasy football owners and dynasty owners this specific time of year, is Deshaun Watson trading somewhere. So if you stuck to your guns and hung on to him in dynasty and didn't trade him away for a third-round pick because you thought he was never going to play again, Deshaun Watson may truly reward you this year.
Yep. I wasn't willing to risk it, but people who were,
it's definitely going to work out in their favor. And don't forget, the Chargers also seem to be going for it. Mike Williams re-signed there. They are signing a shitload of players on defense. Your boy, J.C. Jackson, signed there. They made a huge trade for one of JJ's boys over there. I mean, they may be a good DST for fantasy football next year, too.
Definitely.
All right. Is there anything we missed here, or did we make a good roundabout about the league for free agency and fantasy football?
No, I think we covered it, man. I'm all good.
Anything else you wanted to cover before we get out of here tonight? I think it was a nice, quick, short episode for the Heckling Fandom.
Yep, we're good. Got it all.
All right, guys, and if you like what you hear on Garbage Time Fantasy Football, we'll get more content as the season gets a little bit closer, and as we get closer to the draft, we'll start getting into the mock drafts, the sabotage mock drafts, which is our favorite content. You guys will absolutely love it when you hear it. It's going to be very competitive. You're probably going to hear us yelling a lot at each other. It gets pretty hectic and chaotic up in here. So if you like what you hear, again, I'm going to whore myself out here for me and Ryan. Like and subscribe to Garbage Time Fantasy Football here on YouTube. Visit us at www.garbagetimeff.com, where you can leave us voicemails or hate mails. You can also contact us on Instagram at Garbage Time Fantasy Football. And I believe we have a Twitter handle too, Ryan. What's that Twitter handle?
I don't even know. I don't
want
to
get JJ handles.
I don't want to get the underscore wrong. Hold on.
I'll give you a hint. It's scrolling right across the screen right now. It's
at garbage time _time FF.
Yeah. So if you want to contact us on Twitter, where we also post things when there's updates for the show, or if we have thoughts on things coming up, such as breaking news around the league, you can contact us there too. Like I said, Ryan, let's get out of here tonight and let the Heckling Fandom enjoy this glorious show that we gave them. Good night, guys.
Absolutely.